Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that I heard my colleague, Senator Cornyn, say that we have a shared goal, and I would say that our shared goal is to decrease gun violence in our country, the number one killer of young people in our country. And how do we do that? One of the ways is to, I suppose, lock up the violent criminals, although I'm not so sure that that's what we're doing, that our prisons are populated, have been populated for a long time with maybe not violent, nonviolent drug cases. Be that as it may, for Dr. Ramey, you've worked in this area. Are there other things that Congress can do to decrease the easy access to guns, which results in the deaths of our young people?
One of the biggest things, which I know is partly addressed in the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, is around domestic violence and domestic violence restraining orders. We know that if a perpetrator of domestic violence has access to a gun, you see a 500% increase in the risk of the victim being killed by that gun. We know that most murder-suicides are partner violence, most mass shootings are domestic violence related, and domestic violence is a leading cause of pregnancy death. We also know that states with limits on firearm access by people under a domestic violence restraining order have a significant decrease in firearm partner violence. So that's a significant thing that Congress can do. Extreme risk protection orders or red flag laws are also, the data suggests, tremendously effective in decreasing suicide death in particular, and there's some anecdotal evidence that they may help in reducing mass shooting deaths. And then lastly, of course, data and accurate assessments of whether or not these things work matter deeply. The American public deserves us to spend money and legislation on programs that work, and funding both data and research helps with that enterprise.
Thank you for noting that domestic violence situations are among the worst things leading to gun violence, and I'm sure you're familiar with the Fifth Circuit case based on Bruen, where in a domestic violence situation, the Fifth Circuit tossed out the use of a gun because of a person who was under a domestic violence order, I think. Anyway, this case is before the Supreme Court. What are your concerns about if the court sustains the Fifth Circuit in terms of the ability of the federal government or anybody else to limit gun accessibility from people who have domestic violence orders?
So there's two sides to this. One is the personal. I've taken care of multiple victims of domestic violence shootings, and they are, like those firearm suicides, just horrifying. Mm-hmm. They almost never come out of the blue. Folks know before they happen that they are at risk. I lost a colleague, a fellow emergency physician in 2018, who was shot and killed as she walked out of a shift at a Chicago hospital by her ex-fiancé. So this is something that has tremendous personal resonance to me. The other side of it is that domestic violence is one of those very well-established risk factors for violence against self and others. Again, not just against the partner, but also against children, family members, and society at large. And so there is tremendous concern on the part of the health and public health community that should that Rahimi case be decided to overturn the prohibitions on firearm ownership by folks with a history of conviction of domestic violence, that it will have tremendous negative downstream effects for Americans in general in terms of the number and severity of firearm injuries.
And you are referring to the Ramina case, which is before the Supreme Court. And thank you for making the connection between domestic violence situations and gun violence. But the Bruen decision is leading to unexpected consequences, I would say, and in many criminal proceedings, the criminals or the people who are being tried are using the Bruen decision for the proposition that they cannot be prevented from owning a gun. So the Bruen decision is going to continue to create a lot of questions. In fact, in Hawaii, for example, we have some of the strictest gun laws, and many of these laws are being challenged under the Bruen decision. So I think that the Bruen decision is one that I think Congress should look at. I realize that that decision is based on a constitutional right to bear arms, but it is not an unfettered right, and I think that there is probably more that we can do to limit the impact of the Bruen decision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. Senator Kennedy.